Here is a passage that we didn't cover in our Tartarus episodes. It's from the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, a collection of scripture that first century rabbis demanded not to be read under threat of damnation. But it was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's the Testament of Naphtali, chapter 3, verse 3 through 5. The Gentiles went astray, right? Gentiles being people that are not in covenant Israel, the nations outside of Israel. Gentiles went astray and forsook the Lord and changed their order and obeyed stocks and stones, spirits of deceit. But you shall not be so, my children, recognizing in the firmament, that dome structure over our head that God called heaven, recognizing in the firmament, in the earth, and in the sea, and in all created things, the Lord who made all things, that you become not as Sodom, which changed the order of nature. In like manner, the watchers also changed the order of their nature, whom the Lord cursed at the flood, on whose account he made the earth without inhabitants and fruitless. We see those watchers, as we discussed also in the Tartarus episode, that Daniel mentions this class of angels that are watching, apparently. They changed their order. I don't find it as any coincidence that we see the same thing in Jude, of the same comparison of Sodom changing the order of nature, much like, in like manner, right? The comparison there is that the watchers did so as well. And what was the sin of Sodom? There was some fornication going on there, right?
There's definitely some manipulation involved in what was originally created. That's how you're going to change the order.
Naphtali, on his deathbed, they are drawing that same comparison between the story of Sodom and what was done by the angels who left their first estate, as what we see described in the Epistle of Jude. But let's get into
2 Baruch 56, 12 through 15 says, some of them descended and mingled with the women, and then those who did so were tormented in chains. But the rest of the multitude of the angels, of which there is no number, restrained themselves.
There we go. Some descended, referring to the angels, mingled with women. Those that did so were taken to Tartarus, as we see in Peter, Jude, and we'll see some more in Enoch and Jubilees. But the rest of the multitude, now this is where a lot of people have this theory and this understanding of the passage in Revelation 12, where they think that the Revelation 12 prophecy is about something that has already happened. A lot of them try to place it before creation or during the creation week or sometime, when they think that a third of the angels of heaven, God's angels, and remember we discussed last episode, myriads of myriads, thousands upon thousands, talking in the millions and billions of angels, people really think that a third of those fell and rebelled. But the rest of the multitude of the angels, of which there is no number, restrain themselves, the Apocalypse of Baruch says. So that's not the correct interpretation of that prophecy of what is yet to come. The dragon swiping down a third of the stars. A lot of people immediately say, oh, Satan fell from heaven and got kicked out with a third of the angels, but that's not how it happened. So we're going to get into what really did happen tonight.
First Enoch 61:3. Do you want this one?
Sure. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters, and the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget children. And Simyaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. So they knew it was a great sin going into it.
They did. Yeah. So it wasn't just this innocent idea of, oh, we want to have a family too. Like they knew exactly what was happening. And more importantly, I think it's going to be revealed like what they actually created with these Nephilim. It's not just a normal family.
No.
4 through 6 goes on to say, they all answered him and said, let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. And then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon.
All right. In all 200. There it is right there. It wasn't a third of the millions and billions, tens of thousands. It wasn't a third of the angels that did this sin and that rebelled and that were punished. It was just 200 of them. And Simyaza being named as their leader here.
Yeah, just 200, not millions, not like we read that passage earlier, right? That the untold numbers of ones that did not rebel. Mm-hmm. It's only a small number of them, but unfortunately they can have a large disastrous effect, which is what they did.
Right. It was just this one clique, this little club who was crazy. They didn't they knew better and did it anyways, but yeah, they descended in the days of Jared. And so we have the Testament of Jubilees telling us when he was around. This is Jubilees 4:15. In the second week of the 10th Jubilee, Mahalalel, took unto him to wife Dinah, the daughter of Barachiel, the daughter of his father's brother. And she bare him a son in the 3rd week in the 6th year. And he called his name Jared. For in his days the angels of the Lord descended on the earth, those who are named the Watchers, that they should instruct the children of men, and that they should do judgment and uprightness on the earth. Okay, they didn't fall out of heaven. They didn't get kicked out. God actually sent these guys to do righteousness and to teach.
Yeah. That's where they were created.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So God is being consistent with why he made the angels. They were to be ministers to mankind on the earth. And then as these guys are sent on their mission to come down to the earth, they developed their own little dastardly plan to transgress the Father's instructions. And instead of teaching righteousness, they started teaching unrighteousness. And instead of doing judgment, they started going against God's judgment by taking wives of their own and having offspring. So,
right. And so it wasn't God's plan to send them to do this deed, to procreate. And it wasn't his plan to send them to, as we're going to see here shortly, to teach the occult practices and sorceries as they ended up doing. That's not what God intended for them to do. And that's why they sinned. That's why it was sin for them, because they weren't supposed to procreate, as Yeshua talks about in Matthew 22. But yeah, an annotated version of this book of Jubilees here will tell you that Jared was around the 460th year. We see here in the 10th Jubilee. So that lines up pretty close, somewhere in that range. And we're talking about the 6th from Adam, 6th generation, Jared here. And he's the father of Enoch. So